Russell Perry was born March 8, 1939, and grew up in Oklahoma City during segregation. He played in the very first integrated athletic event that was held in the state of Oklahoma.
I'm very, very proud of that as I look back on it now. As a youngster, 17 years old, I had no idea what was occurring to that extent. Secondly, my parents were both Oklahomans. Both were domestic workers. So I grew up in a very poor environment, but I didn't know it was poor at the time.
His stepfather forced him to leave home at the tender age of 11. After a brief stay with relatives, he lived on his own in a boarding house. His teachers were aware of his situation and looked out for him.
I thought I wanted to become a barber. That was the hip group that they cut the hair and groomed the hair during a 3-hour session each day in high school. And so my vice principal, Mr. Jeltz, never will forget him, directed me out of barbering, told me he was not going to allow me to get into barbering, and he put me into printing, vocational printing, and for a 3-hour course. And I was so disenchanted with that I rebelled, and I got an F the first semester in that vocational printing class, and lo and behold, I got a notice from the principal that I couldn't play football that semester after I failed in that course. And so right away I went in and renegotiated, if I may say, and came out, and believe it or not, the rest is history. I ended up working on a part-time basis after school at a print shop at the newspaper, the Black Dispatch newspaper. And I went in as apprentice devil, sweeping the floors, changing job cases and things of that nature. And lo and behold, after school, after college, when I came back, I went to work there, and lo and behold, I became a 50% owner.
He went to Maryland State University on a football scholarship. He had met his wife Renola when they were in junior high and married her after graduation in 1961 while he was working at the paper. Later, his business partners didn't like his conservative politics, so Russell pulled away from the Black Dispatch to start his own paper in 1979 with a little over $12,000 in savings. Guess who came up with the name?
We were in bed one evening, and I was talking to her about my move. And the first question I asked her, so what do you think that I should name this newspaper? And she told me, she said, I think you should name it the Black Chronicle. I said, we'll do that. And then I looked at her and looked over at her and I said, old girl, what about if I lose? I had mortgaged everything. I had mortgaged house, cars, furniture, everything. I said, well, suppose we lose this venture. And she looked at me and she said, and we were in a home, nice home. She said, then we'll move to an apartment, start all over again.
Behind every great man. While Renola and Russell were growing their family of 3 children, Velvet, Shannon, and Kevin, Russell was adding to the Perry portfolio by getting involved in banking and buying radio stations. His conservative politics garnered him a cabinet position from former Governor Keating to serve as Secretary of Commerce, with a lot of opposition from the African American community. He answered by fighting racism, creating jobs, and bringing jobs in the state. He has a successful paper, 17 radio stations across the country, a leader in his community, and a former governor's cabinet member. How did he do it? With help from others and perhaps a conversation he had with God when he was 11 years old.
I do recall, as I was leaving home that final day, as I walked across a park, I looked up in the sky and I said to myself, and I was speaking to God, stop worrying about your situation. I'm talking to myself. I remember it like it was yesterday. And stop feeling sorry for yourself. You'll do fine. And stop worrying about people loving you. Now, I remember that like it was yesterday. And I held my head up and I walked, and I'm still walking with my head up.
Today, he is the chairman of an empire, a living legacy of truth and determination, the captain of his own ship, a servant in his community, loved by his family, his friends, his employees, and his peers. Which is why Russell Perry is this year's recipient of the Oklahoma City University's Minders School of Business Lifetime Achievement Award.